Hey, I'm curious. Why do you like music? Why do you listen to it? Music is everywhere. And while what we like, why we like it, and when we listen to music may differ, there is something beautiful that great music does to us. It moves us. That tingly feeling is real. Great music changes our mood, uplifts our energy, helps us see new perspectives, and gives us courage to try something we may have thought was difficult or impossible. It may sound cheesy, but this is what gets me grooving to music and why I fell in love with music with great storytelling narratives like Disney, Ghibli Studios, Hamilton, La La Land, and K-pop bands like BTS. This is why we built InnovatorsBox Studios and have been producing music, too, to tell a story and empower our audiences. But why does certain music make us feel this way? And what really goes behind the scenes? Do creators know how their music will impact others? What is their hope and intention when they first start in this career? While on TV, we see a flashy version of a successful artist that are famous and visible everywhere. There are millions of independent musicians around the world making beautiful music who are not on TV. Some make a living. Some continue part-time. And some honestly remind themselves that, hey, every artist you see online started somewhere humble like them as they dream to be the next big star. Welcome to Curious Monica. I'm Monica Kang, founder and CEO of InnovatorsBox and your host of this show. Today, we're going to dive all into what it means to have a career in music and why they love what they do.
Unless it's all done by myself and it doesn't matter. Like, I used to think this way. Like, I have to learn how to do everything by myself. And that's originally why I went to grad school for music production. But the strength and vulnerability is so much stronger than trying to lift everything by yourself. And I think that is something that I'm learning, yes, as a person, but definitely also as a creative. And there's a reason you have all those gaps in you.
Like a roller coaster. I mean, you could say the design of it and stuff is art, but I feel like for me, like the kind of music I know I should be making, it's a transmission of a message that conveys some meaning from one human being to another. Like that's the ultimate goal of 1,000 people spending 3 years and $100 million to make a film, is to communicate something you know or understand or are interested in to someone else in a way that like bypasses, the way you would talk through a conversation.
Music is one of the fields I've wondered about what happens behind stage versus on stage. Whether it's movie like A Star is Born with Lady Gaga, documentaries like Bad Rap with Aquafina, or popular music competition reality TV shows, getting the chance to be seen and valued for your talent is a journey and something that requires a lot of diligence, talent, and a bit of timing. So how do you navigate that space? Let's put things first into perspective. When you think of musicians, what do you envision their life and career journey to be like? I grew up in two cultures where fame is celebrated. American and Korean culture. In Korea, there's this one song that representatively reflects this feeling that a lot of kids learn growing up. 텔레비전에 내가 나왔으면 정말 좋겠네, 정말 좋겠네. 춤추고 노래하는 예쁜 내 얼굴. Okay, I'm not the best singer, but you hear it. The translation of this children's song is, I really wish I could be on TV. Oh, how wonderful that would be. Look at my beautiful face on screen as I sing and dance to this beat. Now, I wouldn't say this is why Korea does such a great job with K-pop and K-drama, but you get a hint of how much Korean youth grow up believing that if you know how to sing, dance, and have talent, you have a chance of making a difference on screen. Same thing in the United States. From Hollywood, red carpet experiences, to being reminded how all the mega entertainment companies and studios are in America, gives a clue to how much consumers love music and entertainment. And how many dream to one day become a star? But personally for me, as someone who never really felt like I was good with music or dance, I always admired when I meet friends and peers who were in the field and were paving their own paths. One thing that I noticed continues to remain true for all musicians. Building a career in music is pure passion, persistence, and patience. And that journey starts from day one. Meet Serin Oh and Luke, full-time musicians who love creating music with a story and a hint of playfulness. They are also part of the InnovatorsBox Studios music production team.
Hi, I am a Korean-American singer-songwriter who also is a creative producer.
I'm Luke. I'm a composer / musical human being from London.
Serin and Luke are two musicians who fell in love with music differently. One wanted to be a musician all one's life, and one turned a hobby into a career because to them, there is no other way to find joy other than music. After meeting at the Berklee College of Music, one of the top music schools in the world, they realized they wanted to continue to pave ways in music in a non-traditional way, finding one's voice outside of the traditional commercial music market. Whether you were in a music field or not, you'd relate very much to their stories. So I'm eager to dive in and be curious about their journey together with you. Oh, and yes, in case you haven't noticed, while InnovatorsBox continues to specialize in culture and leadership development and provide workshops, coaching, and facilitation for companies around the world, in 2021, we launched InnovatorsBox Studios to produce creative content. So including this podcast, we also produce music, videos, and other creative content to make creativity and leadership learning accessible and fun. For music, we produce both under our artist name as a collective at InnovatorsBox Studios, and licensing music for others that want to inspire and motivate innovators' journeys. Do find us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and any music platform you listen to by searching InnovatorsBox Studios. We have a lot of new pieces coming up very soon every month, and I'm so happy that Serin and Luke are one of our team members at InnovatorsBox Studios. You'll meet the others in the future music productions very soon. But back to their journey for now. So as someone who loves music like you, and also now producing for the first time, I had so many questions about what happens behind the scene. How did you start your music career? When do you know it's not a hobby anymore? How do you hone your craft? How do you find your niche? While on paper, everything looks picture perfect, both share looking back how there were always challenges and how they navigated their career and their niche.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you'll hear in both of Luke and I's stories, if we could come from two opposite realms of music journey, it's Luke and I.
And yes, this interview was done together as they both know each other very well. Even before InnovatorsBox Studios, they have produced many songs together. And Serin is right. As you hear from both of them, how they knew they loved music was a very different journey. For Serin, she knew she wanted it, but she wasn't sure until she went to college.
So with me, I just sang around church and sang around choir, loved music, but it was never something that I was like, when I was in first grade, I said I wanted to be a singer, but it was just the same thing as I want to be a fairy, it was in the same line. And when high school came around, I got really involved in my show choir and started listening to jazz music, started with Ella Fitzgerald. And I was like, wow, I really like this. And then entering into senior year was when I first started thinking, is this something I should do? And that's when I applied to a couple schools with music and anthropology. And my main school, University of Southern California, I did not get in. And I was devastated. And that's when my mom was like, hey, how about you just apply to a music school in Boston? And it was a full-blown music school. So that was going to be the only school I applied for fully for music. And then I got into Berklee College of Music. And that's when I actually started my journey of becoming a singer. which is ironic because majority of the times people that go to Berklee are like, oh, I've been doing music since I was 3 years old. And for me, I was like, oh, I've been in choir. And so I had a really difficult time during my university years, especially the first 2 years. I actually completely stopped singing. And as someone who went to college for voice, it was an emotional experience. I just thought I wasn't adequate for this. I'm like, there's so many amazing people. Like, who the heck do I think I am to be doing this? Well, during this time, I pivoted to music business. And I'm so happy that I did because I got to learn more of what goes on behind the scenes and why certain things are currently in place the way that they are in the industry. And after I graduated a semester early. I started diving into songwriting because when I studied abroad in 2017, I found my voice again, figuratively and literally. I started singing, and that's when I started songwriting. And when I graduated at the tail end of 2018, I went back home, and the classic postgraduate depression gently hit me. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And naturally, it just came out through songwriting. And I started diving deeper into my faith. Like, what is my purpose on this earth? Like, what am I supposed to do? I do not have the answers. And that's when my friend Panise had suggested that I apply to the master's program as a producer in Valencia, Spain, also for Berklee College of Music. And I did. And surprisingly, I got in with a scholarship and I was like, okay, it's a sign. And so I went to Valencia, Spain, where I would say 2019 was a pivotal year of declaring myself as a singer-songwriter and artist. Because that's when I just went in. Like, as soon as I got on campus, I made a band and started co-writing with everybody and their mothers. And that's when I also met Luke. He was in my band as a keyboardist, and we started writing, and it just felt right. We understood each other's languages, and everything that I wasn't the best at, Luke was thriving at, and vice versa. And so it was like yin and yang when it came to music. And then 2020 COVID hit, and it just exploded from there.
Luke, on the other hand, had a different journey that led him to Valencia, Spain as well.
Okay, that was a very comprehensive overview. I'm just trying to think where to start. I mean, the thing is, it's a hard question to answer because I need to know what exactly it is I'm doing now. And I feel like I'm in this place where I don't really know how to define my current status as a musician, except that like I'm making a living and getting to spend every day doing music, which is really, I think, all I ever wanted. But if I go back to where it all started, when I was 8 years old, I can't remember where I got the idea from, but I'd seen, because my stepdad, like who I've known since I was 3 years old, has been into classic rock for as long as I can remember. And he showed me like AC/DC, this band called UFO, Scorpions, all like 80s hard rock. And he used to play a lot of that. And I must have heard some and just heard a guitar solo or something and been like, I want to do that. I want to make those sounds. So I told my mum I wanted a guitar, picturing some like long-haired 80s classic rocker. And she bought me like a nylon string classical guitar. The kind of one where you need a footstool and you sit like this and play it like that. And I think she told me like years later when I'd been playing guitar for a decade, like, you know, that first guitar I bought you was about £8, which is something like $12. But like at the time, I just remember being like, oh, I didn't think this is what guitars were like. And so then she started giving me lessons from a parent of one of the kids I went to school with, but he was a classical guitar teacher. So I turned up thinking I was going to learn how to become like the lead guitarist of Guns N' Roses, and started like having to buy a footstool and sit like this and like sight read sheet music and practice scales. And like, I don't really remember it that clearly. I just remember hating it. But my mum said like our teacher had always said like, he's very quick at picking stuff up and like, he's good at it. But I just remember being like, this isn't the guitar that I thought I was going to be playing. And so I kept saying that. And then after about a year of having those classical lessons, we found an electric guitar teacher. And that's when it like really took off for me. And I started learning stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Guns N' Roses. And for a few years, I was just kind of like, it was a hobby. And I definitely like idolized guitarists. But the point I think where I really knew like all I want is to be a musician is when I discovered a guitarist called Steve Vai when I was maybe like 14. And I don't know if you'd heard of him if you're not a guitarist, but to guitarists, he is like an idol. And he just showed me the kind of like dedication that a musician can have, because before that, like I didn't really know much about jazz, and like I'd kind of turned away from classical music because it required too much discipline, which now I regret so much, but I found it later on anyway.
The more he learned about his idols, the more he saw how much dedication they were putting in. For instance, the legendary guitarist that he mentions here, he learned later how Steven did a regular 12-hour intense practice ritual to keep honing his mastery. Such a level of discipline inspired Luke and his curiosity and love for music to only deepen. But getting into the top music school, he had another shock. Something different from Serin.
In school, like the only lesson that started to matter to me was music class, and like theory, which before that I just like hadn't ever thought about, became like so important to me. And suddenly I'd turn up to class and like already know the answers to all these questions that everyone else in the class was like, oh, this is boring. Why do we have to know this? And I just turned into like a total geek. And so for a few years, that became like my life, was just, I want to be like a virtuoso musician on guitar. And that was kind of my dream, was to like be someone like Steve Vai and just tour and play guitar for a living. And then that all changed for me when I got into a school called the Brit School, which is very unique in the UK because it's completely free and it's run by the British recording industry. So they fund it, and it only takes in about 20 students a year for the music program. They also have like musical theatre and other stuff. And a lot of artists you've probably heard of, like Adele, Amy Winehouse, Leona Lewis, a ton more, all went to that school. And when I went there, it was like I went from this kind of small private school where no one else really got why I cared so much about music, to a place where every person there, like music was everything to them. And so I was suddenly like exposed to this giant range of music, like pop music, which I'd said was like trash because it's not serious, and jazz, which I like didn't respect at the time. Suddenly like my musical world was kind of completely blown apart. And so then over those 2 years, I had like a complete reevaluation. And I went in being like, I just want to be a guitarist. I just want to play guitar for my whole life. And during that process, I also did a quick internship at a recording studio. It was only like 2 weeks. But when I was there, one of the people there was the composer for ads. And there's a really famous ad in the UK called, so there's a website called Compare the Market, and they have this like funny ad called Compare the Meerkat, but it's really well known. And he wrote the music for those. And I remember seeing him in this room with plugins that now I know like the back of my hand, but at the time it looked like some alien technology. And he was just playing his keyboard, and an orchestra was coming out of it. And I just looked at it and was like, I didn't know that was possible, because I'd been really interested in like classical music since I started guitar that way. But I just thought like, you don't know how to write for a real orchestra played by 60 human beings and organize that, then it's not possible. And I suddenly saw that like it can be done in, you know, one room with one computer. And then I started thinking, I think maybe I want to be a film composer. And so then fast forward, I had my 2 years at Brit, and I kind of just completely recalibrated and took in all this music, like classical music and jazz fusion, pop, soul, R&B, and came out of it being like, I think I want to be a film composer. And then I did 3 years at university studying film music, which is not common for an undergrad because it's so specific, and turned up to Berkeley with this undergrad in film music, where I met Serin doing a postgrad course also in film music, because it was a bit of a, I don't know, there were some gaps in like what we were taught in the undergrad. And when I met Serin, yeah, it was like the beginning of me finally working out how to bring all these things I'd wanted together, because I really wanted to be a film composer for years at this point, but I still loved pop music and jazz and all these other styles, and I just didn't know how to like just focus on one thing. And then when I met Serin, and like she had this story that I really thought needed to be told, you know, like the Asian American experience, and also like her experience specifically, like I just felt like there was a story that I could help tell with all these like technical kind of geeky skills that I had, and Serin just had like the heart of it. And we started writing songs together, and I just felt like I'm not writing for films, but I feel like the objective is the same as with a film composer when I work with Serin, of like, I'm providing music to tell a story that like can be told best with what I can bring to the table.
Make music to tell a story that only you can tell. In the end, while how Serin and Luke got into music may be different, why they wanted to pursue music aligned. They wanted to tell stories and express their ideas through music to inspire others.
And like, we're just constantly growing as two people, like as a couple and as a musical partnership. And at the same time, I'm still retaining like my, independent work as a composer, and it all percolates, between like everything I'm learning from all these different tasks, like all feeding each other. And I guess, now I'm in a position where I couldn't really tell you my job title other than
Music Man.
100% music. And that's roughly how I got here. I think I got kind of lost in the journey, but I hope that made some sense.
Yes, no innovators are ever lost as long as they continue to pave their way. Oh, and did you catch it? Yes, Serin and Luke are both music partners, friends, and a couple.
Even like us being together, I feel like is this uncommon misfit. Like even us being together, because Luke is like a British South African man who lives in London, and I am a Korean American girl who lives in Ohio. And like even the way that we think, it's very different. But what did align was like the core values of us. And what Luke was talking about, like the art and entertainment. Even if we both were in the entertainment side, Luke came from like the craftsmanship of entertainment, and I came more from like the sparkle of the entertainment side. And so both of us seeing each other in that way somehow is now leading us into looking at it from an art perspective, which is pretty interesting.
The insight of how both of them are truly being themselves, yet opening room for collaboration, is where they find new insights and perspectives together, as musicians and as a couple. That's a lot of listening, curiosity, and patience in wanting to understand one another, which is a gem in itself. It reflects the success they have in the music they create together. They produced 3 singles together under Serin Oh lowercase and have the 4th one coming up this August. And of course, you'll see them collaborating more with the rest of our team at InnovatorsBox Studios as we have more music on Innovators Journey coming up. Okay, but it's one thing to have the passion and visualization that you want to be in this field. What is the drive that gets you back up when things are difficult? Serin, as you shared, this path has not been easy.
Definitely. I think it all started for me my senior year of high school. So this drive just kind of grew with each year. So we had a new band teacher. And mind you, I was in choir this whole time. But we had a new band teacher, and I heard that he was an awesome like jazz band director. And for the 4 years that I was at school, there were no jazz vocalists with the jazz band. And our jazz band was fairly well known in the Midwest. And so they have this weekend-long festival. And for some reason, I had the nerve to just go up to this new band director and was like, hey, mind you, I haven't sang jazz ever. I just love listening to Ella Fitzgerald. I went up to him and I was like, hey, Mr. Frost, do you need a jazz vocalist for your band? Because I'm here. And that came to me because I saw that there was this possibility, but in my head, I was like, how come no one is creating that opportunity? And I had a blast, and I ended up singing with them like for the whole year. And then fast forward 2 years of college, like I mentioned earlier, of losing my voice figuratively and literally. And then after I had that time in Spain of singing again and refinding my voice, I came back to the States. And there was a speaker that came on campus named Sophia Chang. And she is a Korean Canadian manager. She was a manager for the Wu-Tang Clan. And I felt this like whole mix of emotions. And I was like, why do I feel this way? And it was because I've never seen someone who looked like me speak at our school, at a music school, especially someone who was fluent in English, And that's when I started, once again, that like mentality of there's this need. How come no one is doing anything about it? That was triggered once again in me. And that's when I started to think, okay, how about we create a club on campus for people who are second generation Asians to see that we can be leaders in this industry by bringing in the current leaders. And during that time frame, I still didn't really feel like I fit in anywhere because all my business colleagues were super into like marketing and numbers and what looks right. And then all my purely artist friends were always worried about like, oh, like this performance, you know? And then I just felt like, okay, I have this side of my brain and this side of my brain. And I always felt like I had to choose one or the other. And so by me coming to Valencia, Spain, it was me meshing those two brains together through collaborative songwriting, because collaborations you need those business skills. And then with music, I get to perform. And it was always this drive in me that was like, okay, I see this gap. How come no one is doing anything about it? Well, okay, I'll do something about it, because if I feel this way, there's got to be at least one other person that feels this way. And if I can inspire just one other person to be themselves or to dive into this path, then I've done more than I could ever ask for. So I think that's what it always like went back to. And I think it also helps that I'm the firstborn. I just want to say, and being an immigrant kid, I think that has been like ingrained in me as well. Of like, if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And I'm really, really grateful of that in my story.
Don't wait for other people to do it. If you see a gap, an opportunity that you could help improve, step in. Representation matters. Serin's courage reflects in the work and approach she takes both as a singer-songwriter and an active collaborator. As I work more with her and learn about the music world, I see why that's a special skill. For any music production that you see, you would have to get comfortable taking feedback, working with other people, making changes, and being willing to listen to what others see and hear, while still staying true to who you are. The balance of how I can be myself while staying curious to others' perspectives is a delicate balance and something that takes practice. Serin shares how her drive in the end really stems from wanting to help fill the gap that she wishes someone did for her. That's a powerful drive and something that will certainly help any innovator out there go further. But tell us more what you mean by difference in entertainment versus art. Both Serin and Luke mentioned this, and it's something we started setting our values in our studio's work too, as it aligns with our intention of wanting to produce high-quality work, creating music that tells stories instead of purely entertainment. Luke shares that roller coasters are a great analogy. It's beautiful, but it's for entertainment. Music for entertainment and music for art have different depths and impacts.
I love just breaking things down, dissecting everything and understanding like, why is it successful? And like, why does that matter? And I think I started to learn like, for me, there is entertainment and there is art. And we're in a stage where so often like art is only seen as something that provides entertainment. And a lot of great art also does, but some things are just entertainment, like a roller coaster. I mean, you could say the design of it and stuff is art, but I feel like for me, like the kind of music I know I should be making, it's a transmission of a message that conveys some meaning from one human being to another. Like that's the ultimate goal of 1,000 people spending 3 years and $100 million to make a film, is to communicate something you know or understand or are interested in to someone else in a way that like bypasses, you know, the way you would talk through a conversation, that like accesses, you know, something more spiritual. And I realized like a lot of the music I made, I was just trying to make something good in an entertainment sense, but I never really liked the stuff I made because I didn't feel like it had that in it. Like it had no meaning in terms of something I was trying to tell people by making it.
So instead, Create music that could send a message, a story, and an inspiration. When the intention is there in the creation, the result will feel different. This is why at our studios, we've been ideating and reflecting a lot on what we hope innovators will feel. Specifically, as we create songs like Paint My World and the upcoming projects in mindfulness, lo-fi, instrumental, and holiday collections coming up. And I'd say this is a key lesson beyond just music. Our thoughtful intentions echo throughout any creative work we pour ourselves into as innovators. I know I can write our podcast scripts more with ease and joy when my intention and clarity of what I hope to communicate is deeply rooted. Same goes for an email I write. So how do you take the time to improve what you do? Do you have certain crafts you spend more time in? There seems to be a lot of things to keep up with.
That's a great question as well. And I think like me and Serin discuss these things at length all the time. Like sometimes just talk for hours about like the philosophy of why we do all this. It's definitely a hard one to answer because for me now, craft is not the point. It can help, but so many people these days, I think, have mistaken the tool for the user. An amazing musician and educator called Victor Wooten visited us in Spain, and he gave this lecture that really it was these things that were kind of gestating, like growing in me, but he kind of visualized it in a way where I really saw clearly, this is how I think about music. And he was saying remember this bass guitar, this piano, without you, music doesn't exist. A bass guitar is not music. It's not something that emotionally moves anyone. It's just a piece of wood with some strings nailed to it. Same with a piano or any other instrument. And so many people, I think these days, are so obsessed with the craft because it is like a awe-inspiring thing, but they forget that the craft was only ever the tool, and you are the music. I think I, for a long time, was lost around there somewhere of letting the tool use me and forgetting that I'm the thing that's supposed to be using the tool, because a human being is a lot more interesting and exciting at the end of the day than a bass guitar.
True indeed. Getting better at what you do doesn't mean you have to just get better at how to do it. It really means investing more in who you are as a person. Any creation work's most unique asset is you as the being. Your insight, your perspective, your way of thinking, your way of approaching. If we are not taking the time to invest in ourselves, improving ourselves, and growing, how can we expect the result of what we do to improve?
I think just understanding, we're all programmed with some kind of sensor for meaning. We know when something means something to us versus when it doesn't. And I think it's being aware enough of yourself and making sure you create space for that, and you push yourself and in a way kind of provoke yourself, put yourself in places where you feel a reaction, because that's where you start to learn what things mean to you. That's why for me, I love consuming art that I hate, which sounds really strange, but I love being provoked, because I think you learn just as much from really reacting negatively to something I don't like that. And I think, well, why don't I like that? And do I not like that for a valid reason? Or is it just, some cultural programming or something that I haven't looked deep enough to understand?
This is a great tip. To deepen our horizon, take a moment to be aware of how you make sense of your surroundings and of certain aspects you like and don't like. Serin also agrees and shares a few more pointers for musicians out there paving their own paths too. You don't have to be someone who knows how to do everything. Focus on what you really do well, and your weaknesses, that's okay. Find collaborators who you could grow with. Don't go alone.
I thought, unless I could transcribe Miles Davis trumpet solos, I was not a singer. I genuinely believe that. And throughout time, I learned that I naturally, I think, am a vision person, and I love feeding into the mission. And it works because Luke is a very detailed person. And that's not where my strength lies. And that's really required for like certain theories. And I realize that that's something that, yes, there's a reason I don't feel naturally pulled to those theories. And that's okay. And learning to let go, and therefore collaborating with people who can then uplift and like live out this mission statement to its fullest potential. And I think that also goes back to dropping my ego. And this is a lesson that I am learning with songwriting, is feedback and taking feedback and seeking feedback. Because I used to think that unless it's all done by myself, then it doesn't matter. Like I used to think this way. Like I have to learn how to do everything by myself. And that's originally why I went to grad school for music production. But the strength and vulnerability is so much stronger than trying to lift everything by yourself. And I think that is something that I'm learning, yes, as a person, but definitely also as a creative. And there's a reason you have all those gaps in you. And it's so that you can grow with other people. And yeah, reframing my mind that way has been definitely the most, I guess, crucial and pivotal mind shifts change.
Oh, how guilty are we on this? Being a leader, innovator, and an expert, we pride ourselves on excellence and quality in all that we do. But that does not ever mean we have to do things alone. I love Serin's beautiful reminder to work with people together to make something even better. That's why music that is built with collaboration, feedback, and openness even grows stronger. And so does any other innovation. And as Serin shares, this is a continuing learning journey, a skill she brings back even in her relationship with loved ones, including as a couple together with Luke.
And I think that adds on to like our relationship, because the first couple of months in our relationship, like every time Luke would give me feedback, I'll be like, no, I don't like you completely, you know? And I would take it as like him telling me that like I'm wrong, you know? And then eventually with time, we learned to like almost compartmentalize, like, okay, this is when we're doing our craft. This is when we're talking about our artistry. And this is when we're being like Saruks, you know, that's our couple name, Saruk. And I think it directly reflects on how we started crafting the songs. And then now even like in our relationship, it's like, okay, we know the truth is that we really care for one another. So if there's like arguments or stress that flows from these other aspects of our lives, then we check ourselves and check one another in a way, knowing this truth about ourselves. And so it just seems like every part of our life, it's growing similarly.
Not taking feedback personally and being aware we are all growing is a lifelong lesson we could all do a bit more of. And I appreciated Serin and Luke's vulnerability and openness to share this, as I know a lot of musicians and all career professionals would really resonate with this insight. As a coach and entrepreneur, I resonate on the importance also of how much your growth influences how you could grow professionally. If I'm not taking care of myself and making time to improve things, how can I envision helping more people better? This is why, as I circle back with them for final advice, they go back to the core message we hear across many innovators. Take the time to know yourself and be true to yourself.
You are your obstacle. What you think you can't do, you're right, unless you change.
And I guess mine actually is a version of that, which is you are never too late to start learning yourself and never too late to act on what you find out about yourself.
And plus, there is a book and message they recommend for you.
To just play. And I think this is a book that Luke had recommended to me called Just Play. And the book, literally, the title is just play, because I think oftentimes, especially as creatives, we see certain people and we're like, oh, they're this certain level and we can never achieve that. Therefore, I have to like suck out my soul and like devote everything I have to this, and to a point where you don't enjoy it anymore. But at the end of the day, it's us playing. Like, we're playing. And to go back to that, and especially in life as well, like, we're playing. This is our playground, you know? Like, we make the rules, we make the games.
Life is your playground. Yes, I know some of us at times feel like that doesn't seem possible, that we don't have enough support in finance, time, resources, and more. But we can always choose how to still show up each moment. The theme I keep hearing in every conversation is to practice stepping into your narrative as the protagonist. Own the life you want to live and show up as your full self. Whether you are a musician on stage or a professional living out your dream life, we can all live to our best potential no matter where you are. It starts with you believing in you. Thank you, Serin and Luke, for joining us today. Be sure to check out their individual work as well as our collaboration at InnovatorsBox Studios. We have a lot new music coming up for you, including music licensing projects, so we'd love to help create some for you too. Speaking of impact, next week, I want to visit community leaders and learn about their journey. What does it mean to build a community? And how do they make time to balance all the thoughts and voices of their people? Curious to learn more? Join us next week at Curious Monica. I'm your host, Monica Kang at InnovatorsBox, and I'll see you again soon.
Hello there, I'm Luke Helder, the head composer at InnovatorsBox, and I hope you're enjoying Curious Monica. I'm obsessed with art and the power it has to convey meaning and emotion, and I also really like tea. This show is brought together by our awesome team: producer Serin Oh, audio engineers Sam Lermut and Ravi Ladd, Kelly Gravo on marketing, website designer Akriti Pandey, graphic designer Monica Escobar, and me on music. And of course, this show is hosted and directed by the curious woman herself, Monica Kang, founder and CEO at InnovatorsBox. To continue the curiosity and creativity of the workplace, visit us at InnovatorsBox.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share. We would love to hear what you are curious about and what secrets Monica could uncover in future episodes. See you next week.